Pinehill Manor loomed ominously on a desolate hill, a decaying mansion surrounded by thick, twisted trees. The atmosphere was oppressive, and an eerie silence hung in the air. The locals had, long since abandoned the idea of exploring the place, speaking only in hushed tones about the strange happenings that echoed from the mansion's windows at night. Despite the warnings, a group of 4 friends, Sarah, Ben, Emma, and Jake, set out, eager for adventure. As they approached the mansion, the wind howled like a tormented creature, and the once sturdy front porch creaked under their weight. The front door, which had been shut for years, groaned as if reluctantly welcoming them inside. The moment they stepped foot on the creaky front porch, the air grew heavy, and the wind howled like a creature in pain. The front door, which had been shut for years, groaned as if reluctantly inviting them inside. The mansion was a shadow of its former grandeur. Dust covered everything, and the smell of decay hung in the air. Strange markings like claw marks were scratched into the walls, but there was something else, something unsettling about the silence. No sounds of wildlife outside, no creaking of the house as it settled, just an oppressive stillness. As night fell, they made their way deeper into the house, exploring room after room. Each space felt colder than the last, as if the temperature dropped with every step they took further into the heart of Pinehill Manor. Emma, ever the skeptic, laughed off the discomfort. "It's just an old house, guys." "Stop being scared," she said, but her voice wavered slightly. They decided to set up camp in the grand living room. The fireplace, long unused, had a strange, inexplicable glow to it. Tried to make a fire, but despite numerous attempts, the logs wouldn't catch. As they settled in for the night, Ben suggested they play a game, a way to pass the time. "Let's try Ouija," he said, pulling out an old, worn board he had brought with him. Though hesitant, they agreed. The planchette moved slowly at first, as if testing them. Then it jerked sharply and began spelling out words. Strange, cryptic words they couldn't understand. But the words weren't the most chilling part. It was the temperature drop that followed. Suddenly the air was so cold they could see their breath. In the dim light, "Who's there?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Emma screamed, knocking the board across the room, her face pale. "That wasn't funny, guys. This isn't a joke." But her voice lacked conviction. The laughter died quickly as the air grew even colder, and the sounds around them became more distinct. Footsteps, soft and dragging, as if something were pacing around them. A twisted, broken spirit that had never left Pinehill Manor. "We need to go now, this place isn't right." The door they had entered through was no longer there, twisting and stretching as though the house itself was alive and hungry, coiling and writhing like living things. But there was no signal. The temperature continued to drop. They heard it, the unmistakable sound of a door opening behind them. Its eyes were black voids, and its smile was too wide, too sharp. Sarah, trembling, grabbed Ben's arm. But when they tried to leave instead, a dark hallway stretched before them. The shadows in the hall began to move. Sarah reached for her phone to call for help, and the whispers grew louder. Then, slowly, they turned to find a figure standing at the entrance to the hallway. It was one of the Blackwoods, what was left of them. A twisted, broken spirit that had never left Pinehill Manor. The figure stepped forward, its bony fingers reaching toward them. As it touched Sarah's shoulder, she screamed, an agonizing, echoing scream that seemed to reverberate throughout the entire house. The world around her seemed to collapse, darkness swallowing her whole. The others tried to run, but the house itself wouldn't let them. The walls closed in, and with every turn, they found themselves deeper in the labyrinth of Pinehill Manor. Each time, they thought they had found an exit. Another door would appear, leading them farther into the abyss. One by one, they vanished. Sarah, Ben, Emma, and Jake. They called it the Old Logging Road. A snarl of cracked asphalt and overgrown weeds that sliced through the heart of the Blackwood Forest. Locals whispered about it, a hushed, almost reverent fear in their voices. "Don't take that road," they'd say, eyes darting to the shadows. "It ain't right." But for the 4 of them stranded after a blown tire on the main highway, it was the only option. Mark, the pragmatic one, Sarah, the nervous artist, Ben, the boisterous joker, and Emily, the quiet observer. They were a ragtag bunch bound by a shared desperation to get back to civilization before nightfall. The sun was already dipping below the tree line, casting long, skeletal shadows that danced and writhed across the cracked pavement. Mark, behind the wheel of the battered Jeep gripped the steering wheel tighter. The air was thick, heavy, with the scent of damp earth and something else. Something acrid and metallic like old blood. The road twisted and turned to black. Ribbons snaking through the dense forest at first. It was just an annoyance, the constant turns making Sarah nauseous, but as the sun vanished, plunging them into a premature twilight, a creeping unease settled over them. How long has it been? Ben asked, his voice a little too loud, a little too forced. Mark glanced at the dashboard clock. An hour, maybe feels longer. Emily, her eyes fixed on the deepening shadows, said nothing. She noticed something off about the trees. They were too tall, their branches gnarled and twisted, reaching out like skeletal fingers. The forest seemed to press in on them, a living, breathing entity. Then they noticed the lack of landmarks. No familiar rock formations, no fallen trees. They passed before just the endless ribbon of asphalt, the suffocating trees, and the growing darkness. "We're going in circles," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Mark shook his head. "No, we're not. I've been keeping track." But even he could hear the uncertainty in his voice. The road began to change. The asphalt crumbled, revealing patches of dirt and gnarled roots. The trees seemed to lean closer, their shadows merging into a solid, impenetrable wall. The air grew colder, a bone-chilling cold that seeped into their marrow. Then the sounds started, not the rustling of leaves or the chirping of crickets, but something else, a low guttural growl, a sound that seemed to emanate from the very earth beneath them. Ben, trying to maintain his bravado, switched on the Jeep's high beams. The light cut through the darkness, revealing nothing. Just more trees, more shadows. But the shadows were moving, shifting, coalescing into shapes that were just beyond the edge of perception. The growling grew louder, closer. They could feel it now, a vibration in their chests, a primal fear that clawed at their sanity. "Stop the car," Emily said, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. "We need to get out." Mark slammed on the brakes, the Jeep skidding to a halt. The engine died, leaving them in absolute silence, broken only by the rasping growl that seemed to surround them. They stepped out, their breath catching in their throats. The forest was alive, a sea of darkness punctuated by the glowing eyes of something that watched them from the shadows. The road behind them was gone, just trees, a solid wall of black. They were trapped. The growling intensified, and the shadows began to move, to coalesce into forms that were both familiar and utterly alien. They were tall, gaunt figures, their faces obscured by shadow, their eyes burning with a cold, malevolent light. They were the guardians of the road, the keepers of the endless night they had been waiting. The travelers screamed, a chorus of terror that was swallowed by the darkness. The road had claimed them, another group lost in its endless, twisting embrace. The growling faded, replaced by the silence of the forest, a silence that was broken only by the whisper of the wind through the trees, a whisper that sounded like a sigh of ancient, patient hunger. And the road, as always, continued to stretch, on waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to stumble into its nightmarish depths.